Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into an incredibly fascinating topic, specifically the crucial cultural shifts you really need to understand if you're considering stepping into a cross-cultural relationship with a Japanese partner. We are going to break down the foundational differences in how a partnership actually operates, basically exactly what you need to know before, as our source material playfully puts it, signing your life away. Because, these aren't just minor lifestyle tweaks or quirky little personality traits. We're talking about deep, systemic differences in communication, finances, and family integration that literally define the success of a cross-cultural marriage. So are you thinking of marrying a Japanese woman? Look, it is so incredibly easy to get swept up in the romance of an international relationship, right? You travel, you try amazing new food, you just fall in love with the absolute novelty of it all. But the day-to-day reality of building a permanent life together, that requires some serious, deliberate cultural navigation. Once the honeymoon phase kind of fades into the routine of daily life, those underlying cultural expectations come sharply into focus. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what you need to navigate to build a really strong foundation. We'll explore how conflict is fundamentally resolved, how household finances are practically managed, and how ancient traditions weave seamlessly right into modern everyday life. Because, trust me, understanding these elements is the absolute difference between constant friction and a thriving, harmonious partnership. All right, Section 1, Decoding Subtle Communication. Let's look at conflict and feelings. So in a lot of Western cultures, openly arguing is actually seen as a healthy, almost necessary way to just clear the air. You get mad, you talk it out, maybe voices get a little raised, but eventually you resolve the issue and move on. Well, here is the first major contrast you're going to encounter. A Japanese partner will often prefer subtle communication, completely bypassing that explosive argument and instead quietly withdrawing when she's upset. Now, to a Westerner, this immediate retreat feels exactly like the classic silent treatment, right? It feels punitive, but actually scratch that. It's not a punishment at all. It is a profound cultural shift aimed at preserving harmony. It's a concept known deeply in Japan as wa. Maintaining wa means avoiding direct confrontation that might cause a loss of face or create this unhealable rift. When she goes quiet, she's actually trying to protect the relationship from destructive conflict. But, and this is absolutely crucial, that withdrawal requires your immediate, empathetic attention. See, because she isn't going to just yell and tell you exactly what you did wrong, the responsibility completely shifts over to you. You are expected to actively observe and notice her feelings without her having to spell it out for you. In Japan, there's this really vital social concept called kuki o yomu, which literally translates to reading the air. It's this expectation that a mature adult can just sense the shift in a room's atmosphere and understand the unspoken emotional dynamics at play. So if she is quietly withdrawn, the expectation is that you are attuned enough to her emotional state to sense that subtle shift in the air. You've got to evaluate your own actions, read her body language, and gently address the disconnect. Because let me tell you, stubbornly waiting for a verbal confrontation to know something's wrong, that is a guaranteed recipe for a long-term disaster. Emotional intelligence here literally means listening to the silence just as closely as you listen to the words. Moving right along to Section 2, the monthly allowance system, let's talk about managing the budget. Okay, so if that communication shift requires a massive change in your emotional habits, this next point requires an equally massive change in your financial ones. In a lot of Japanese households, the wife manages the household budget entirely, the whole shebang. All the income is pooled. She handles the bills, the savings, the investments, and the result? She gives you a set monthly allowance. It's often called okozukai. Now, if you're coming from a culture of totally independent finances, or you're just used to being the sole manager of your own paycheck, you absolutely must be ready for this conversation. And no, this isn't some outdated stereotype. It's a very real, very common dynamic in modern Japanese marriages that can catch foreign partners completely off guard. But wait, before you jump to conclusions and just reject this idea out of hand, we really need to completely reframe this practice. Within Japanese culture, the wife managing the money is absolutely not seen as controlling or restrictive. No way. Think of it more like she is stepping into the role of the CFO of the household. It is viewed as a standard, deeply responsible way to ensure the family's long-term financial health. Her managing the budget is quite literally an act of care. It's about securing the household's future, making sure the kids are provided for, and keeping the family debt-free. So it's household management, not an act of dominance or a lack of trust in you. Understanding this absolutely crucial distinction, that okazukai is all about family unity and security, is going to save you from a lot of unnecessary resentment and arguments over financial independence. Next up, Section 3, Navigating Traditions and Customs. A look at respecting culture. Now, you might assume that younger, globally connected generations have kind of just discarded the old customs, right? Well, that profound respect for tradition totally persists in Japan, even in the most modern relationships. These customs surrounding family interaction aren't just polite little suggestions, you'll actually be expected to master them as a vital cultural toolkit. For example, you need to navigate exactly when and how deeply to bow, which completely changes based on who you're greeting. You also have to figure out the intricate, highly structured etiquette of gift giving, which is known as omiyage, and make sure you're using proper, respectful language during those crucial family events. And listen, this goes far beyond just being polite. Japan is a highly collectivist society. How you carry yourself in these scenarios, how respectfully you interact with her parents and extended family, that reflects directly on her. If you just brush off these traditions as unnecessary, you aren't just embarrassing yourself, you're actually causing her to lose face in front of the people she loves most. And finally, Section 4, Celebrating Seasons Together, Finding the Rhythm of the Year. This deep-rooted respect for tradition we just talked about extends beautifully into this overarching cultural love of seasonal events. The culture places immense value on observing and celebrating the subtle changing of the seasons. It's like this continuous, grounding rhythm of life. It kicks off with the iconic, fleeting cherry blossom viewings, hanami, in the spring, where everyone gathers under the trees with food and drinks. Then it moves right into the vibrant, super energetic summer festivals filled with traditional clothing, street food, and fireworks. And then it carries all the way to the quieter, deeply reflective New Year traditions in the winter, which involves shrine visits and special family meals. So these aren't just fun tourist attractions. They are the actual milestones that mark the passing of time for a Japanese family. And as a partner, you're definitely expected to enthusiastically embrace this rhythm. But, here's the catch when it comes to these seasonal traditions. It is definitely not enough to just be a bystander or to passively tag along while she does all the heavy lifting. Step 1 is active participation. Showing up with a good attitude and a real willingness to learn. But step 2 is where the real partnership actually happens, stepping up to help plan these events. Taking the initiative to, say, research a great spot for a spring picnic, or maybe helping prepare the home for a New Year gathering. That shows a profound level of commitment. It elevates you from just being a foreign guest in her culture to a true, integrated partner. Taking on the mental load of organizing these little moments proves that you value her culture just as much as she does. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ask yourself a hard question. Are you truly prepared to not just observe a different culture, but to actively adapt your own life to it? Rethinking how you argue and handle frustration, handing over the reins to your household finances, and dedicating your weekends to learning intricate seasonal traditions. All of that requires setting your ego completely aside. It requires immense flexibility and a genuine willingness to be a student of your partner's world. So, are you genuinely ready to merge your world with hers? Or are you secretly hoping she'll just eventually adapt to yours? Understanding the cultural realities we covered today is your very first step in answering that question honestly. Thanks for diving into this with us.